YouTube, Johnny Kalashnikov here. Today's video is in response to a number of people on Twitter. Jack, Open Mind, and there's another person who are looking for proof from God. And that's what this video is about. It says Proof of God, Part 1. So a few caveats I need to share with you before I start. Number one, this video, I know a number of the people on Twitter are trolls. They're just looking for attention, looking to knock other people's beliefs down. So anyways, if you're just doing that, this video is probably not for you, because you're just going to say, well, that's just your story, and well, it doesn't really prove anything. Well, this is part one. This is my testimony. This is my story. This is who I am. This is why I believe what I believe. If you don't like it, that's up to you. But I'm here to tell you because you asked for proof. So I'm going to do multiple parts. This is part one. This is my testimony, at least part of it. So one of my favorite scriptures in the Bible is Hebrews 11 verse 6, where it says that without faith it is impossible to please God. And also right afterwards it says that God rewards those who diligently seek after Him. So if you're hungry, if you're thirsty, if you're looking for God, God's going to reward you. That's His promise. So if you're really seeking because you're curious, you're going to get rewarded. God's going to do something. What is He going to do? I don't know. He's God. He can do whatever He wants. Why is testimony so important? Why am I choosing this to be my first video? Number one, because David, right before he beat up Goliath, right before he killed Goliath, he talked about his testimony. He said, I killed the bear, I killed the lion, I'm going to kill this dude. Jesus, in the book of Revelation, he said the two most powerful things are the blood of the Lamb and the word of your testimony. If you know where God's put you through, then, or what He's brought you from, then you can be able to endure a lot. He says also, those who've been forgiven much love much. My cousin Mark, he is an atheist. He says the main reason he's an atheist because he's never had to go through anything rough. I, on the opposite hand, I've gone through a lot of rough stuff. Number one, I never got to know my biological dad. Number two, I was adopted at the age of 4. The dude who adopted me was extremely abusive alcoholic. First half of my life, he was, it was bad. 911 on speed dial, 8 years old, pointed a gun at me, so I'm going to kill you and your mothers. All right, cool, kill me. I don't care. What do I got to live for? Second half of my life growing up, he was gone. I had no dad. And then fourth thing, I saw him commit suicide about 5 years ago. One thing I will share before I go any further is that testimonials, a lot of atheists and agnostics, they look for 100% proof. Guess what? There's no such thing. You're looking for scientific method proof. Guess what? Good luck, because you need faith in order to bridge the gap. I don't care what you believe in. You're gonna need a measure of faith to believe, to put you over the edge. You need faith to believe in atheism. You need faith to believe in whatever. But, so this is my story. You can't measure a testimony by scientific method. I took over 600 prescription painkillers. I'm a miracle that I'm still alive. 600 prescription painkillers, Vicodin, Darvocet, Lortabs, Tylenol APAP number 3 with codeine, with vodka. I should be dead. So if you try to do scientific method and put 100 people through that, a number of them are gonna die. And that's kind of a dumb way. Scientific method's good for certain things, but in other ways it is dumb to try to prove stuff. How can you scientifically measure love? How can you say it exists? Well, you can't grow it in a beaker or a test tube. There's just some things you can't measure it. God is love. You can't measure God's love. You can't measure the love of a parent in a test tube or in a petri dish. That's just not going to happen. You can't observe it with a telescope. You can't observe it with a microscope. Guess what? Does love exist? Yes, it does. All right, so anyways, I'm not saying that I've been a Christian my whole life. I was raised in a Catholic family, and the rote religion got to me. Sit, stand, kneel. Sit, stand, kneel. The pastor or the priest, he would preach against alcoholism, yet the guy who adopted me, who drove me home, he got drunk religiously at a church. That pissed me off. That hurt me deeply. That turned me against God. That turned me against the church. I was an agnostic. Then I became atheist. I was so abused by the guy who adopted me. I was abused verbally, physically, emotionally. I had to have 911 on speed dial. I grew up rough. So one of the main reasons that people don't believe in God, and I know this to be true, is because you don't have a good earthly father, which is a direct representative of the Heavenly Father. So if I knew that the father the father figure who was supposed to take care of me didn't care about me, and he was abusive, well, it's kind of easy to project that to God. So what did God do? Well, I looked for peace in drugs, I looked for it in alcohol, I looked for it in girls, I looked for it in money, I looked for it in music, and I couldn't find it. I felt as a human, I had to basically walk away from everything. That I got a long story. I'm writing a book. I got 3 chapters devoted to it. Long story short, I had to walk away from everything that gave me my identity. I walked away from my band. I walked away from my best friend. I walked away from my college. I walked away from my job. All those things gave me my identity. And as a human, I felt useless. I had no sense of purpose. And after walking away from those things, I felt I needed a purpose. And I couldn't find one. I needed peace. So I cried out to God. I said, God, before I commit suicide, before I do something dumb, I'm going to do something crazy. I'm going to pray, give you one last shot. God, if you don't give me a reason to live, I'm not going to. And his peace touched both me and my fiance at the time. Who's now my wife. We've been married 16 years in this June, just a few days. So anyway, God gave us peace. He prevented us from committing suicide. 3 days later, we talked to an angel for about 3 hours. We became Christian, and my brother-in-law, there's an interesting story. My brother-in-law, we were telling him, dude, you gotta meet Jesus. He's gonna change your life. He's gonna give you peace. And he's like, well, I don't believe you. Prove him to me. All right, cool. So I said, hey, let's jump in my truck. Let's go for a drive. And so we started driving. This was in Houston, Texas. We started out Beltway 8 by Memorial on the west side of town. And I took off in my truck. We drove east on I-10. And we drove for about half an hour or so towards the Ship Channel area. It was a very industrial part of town, and the thought came to me, dude, you win. Alright, I'm sorry, I can't prove God to you just through driving. I have no idea what possessed me to think that I can try to prove God to you by just driving in my little truck down I-10. So I said, I'm just going to turn around, you win, and we'll do something some other day, I don't know. So I exited the next exit, and I was going. It was an extremely industrial part of town. There's a bunch of oil refineries, and there's a bunch of railroad tracks. I mean, you got 2 sets of railroad tracks. There's about 8 railroad tracks. You got a big hill, and then you got a valley, and then you got another area about 8 railroad tracks. We got another hill. So I went, and to the best of my ability, I tried to find a way to turn back around. I couldn't. I hit a dead end. So I said, you know what? Forget about it. I'm just going to go back the way I came. I didn't realize I was going the wrong way on a one-way street. So I went over the first hill with the railroad tracks, And all of a sudden, right when I hit the bottom, something inside told me, get off the road, get off the road. So, okay, cool. I jumped the curb, I got off the road. Less than half a second later, a van going about 60 miles an hour would have hit us head on, just passed right by. And at the same time, my fiance and I, at the exact same time, Proverbs 3 verse 5 and 6 came out of both of our mouths same time, unplanned, unrehearsed, which says, trust in the Lord with all your heart, lean not on your own understanding, and on your ways acknowledge him, and he will direct your paths. So my brother-in-law, he saw the van shoot by, and he knew that it would have hit us head on. So we both looked at him and said, dude, is this proof enough for you? We should be dead. You know, that van should have hit us about 60 miles an hour. I was going about 40. So if you take the physics of that, a van going 60, truck going about 40 miles an hour, that's the same as hitting a brick wall but going 100 miles an hour. There's some proof right there. I got more testimonials. I'm going to share that on the next video tomorrow, which is going to be part 2. Peace.